You boys be quiet down there!
Hello and welcome to Neo Neo Geo Reviews. I'm planning to review every Neo Geo game in order, or trying at least, and this is the first video in the series. The first game I'll be covering is Nam-1975, so let's take a look.
Summer 1975. A nightmare awaits me. I am being recalled to Non-Torn headquarters. Do I have to go back to the hell again?
Nam 1975, 1990 from SNK. This is it, NGH-001, the very first Neo Geo game. Or at least, the first game to be given a production code. For this review, I am playing on my MVS cartridge, but you can also get it for the Neo Geo Home system, which was released a bit later, or on Neo Geo Cd. The game was never ported to any other consoles. Nam 1975 takes place in the summer of 1975. By this time, the Vietnam War was officially over, but the end of the war was by no means the end of conflict in the region. The player is an American who is given the mission of rescuing a scientist named Dr. Muckley and his daughter Nancy from deep in the jungle. By the end of the game, we find out that Dr. Muckley has gone insane and has created a giant laser weapon in order to take over the world. I find the sci-fi elements of the plot a bit out of place in the context of a real historical conflict. Vietnam was a real war that real people fought and died in. The plot of a doctor with his giant laser weapon feels almost disrespectful to the veterans of the real war. As far as historical realism, Call of Duty this certainly is not. Nam 1975 is one of a great many games produced by SNK's founder Eikichi Kawasaki. He and the producers clearly drew a lot of inspiration from Vietnam War movies like Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket in order to conceive the concept of this game. In fact, the picture of the main character firing his gun in the game's opening sequence is clearly taken from a scene in Full Metal Jacket. The words on his helmet are different, but check this out. And the lifting of images from Full Metal Jacket doesn't stop there. Check out this lady from the end of the game. Or how about the first boss? I'd like to point out that this character isn't even from the Vietnam War section of the movie. I think the artist just decided to use this as a reference for no particular reason. I mean, what the hell? Just look at this. And I'm even pretty sure the voice from the opening is from the movie.
Go back fast.
At this point, I'm pretty sure there are more of these than I'll ever be able to identify, possibly from other movies. It's hard to imagine game makers getting away with wholesale theft of shots from a movie today, but back in 1990, the game industry was more like the Wild West. Games were more easily able to slip things like this under the radar. The Dr. Muckley plot seems to draw a lot of inspiration from Apocalypse Now. Dr. Muckley is like the game's version of Colonel Kurtz, who has gone rogue and walled himself off deep in the jungle. Well, that is if Colonel Kurtz had been building a giant laser in the movie. Which he wasn't. I would describe the gameplay as a gallery shooter. Like Cabal. Or Dynamite Duke. Or Konami's arcade version of G.I. Joe. Or Wild Guns. Your character stands at the bottom of the screen while it auto-scrolls as enemies enter and exit the playfield. The 4 directions control your crosshair, while left and right also control the movement of your character. The C button will allow you to quickly dash out of the way of danger, a technique that you will have to master if you want to get better at this game. You can also hold a downward direction while pressing C, which will make your character perform a flip. Your character is invincible while flipping, but it's not as fast as the normal dash. In addition to your standard shot, you can pick up special weapons, which have limited ammo. And the B button throws your grenades. If you like Metal Slug, you should feel pretty at home with the weapon setup here. You can also get a weapon that doubles up your crosshair for twice the firepower. And my favorite, you can rescue the blonde woman who stays with you and helps you shoot enemies for as long as you can stay alive. And what the hell? You press start to pause the game? Unlike every other Neo Geo game where you press select to pause? Get it together, Nam. What system do you think this is? I guess select hadn't been established as the standard Neo Geo pause button yet. The mood of this game is very old SNK. The tone is more dry and serious, like Iron Tank, Alpha Mission, or Ikari Warriors. It wasn't long after this that we started getting SNK games with more personality, like Samurai Showdown and King of Fighters. But the serious tone does fit this game. The game has a total of 6 stages, with the average playthrough only taking about 30 minutes. Because this is an adrenaline-filled, arcade-style action game for 2 players, it is still a very fun game to pick up and play today. It certainly doesn't hold up to later run-and-gun games on the Neo Geo like Shock Troopers and Metal Slug, but it certainly holds its own. Check out these guys. Where the hell did they jump in from? And check out this boss between stages 1 and 2. These arms will grab you, and they're really tough to avoid. This is usually where my first death comes. Among the Neo Geo's library taken as a whole, the graphics in Nam-1975 certainly don't really stand out, which is somewhat forgivable since it is the first game. But you do get some large bosses, scaling effects, and check out that water. People were blown away just to see that many colors back then. From the beginning, the Neo Geo was showing us why it commanded such a hefty price tag, and this game was no slouch. Although there were games available at launch, such as Magician Lord, that I think better sold the system's capabilities. The hilariously bad voice acting is unfortunately one of the features that dates this game, and makes it much harder to take seriously. That's not to say you won't enjoy the voices. The cheese factor can be amusing for those playing the game today. The story plays out through cutscenes between stages and before each boss fight. The main character who is narrating the story gives it his all for his part, but as for some of the bosses, well...
New operations have been won.
You will die! Too late, you are not the enemy for my new weapon. Oh no! Your real enemy is...
The music was composed by Yoko Osaka, someone who did the music for a lot of SNK games around this era. She perhaps most famously created some of the music for Crystalis and the first 2 Fatal Fury games. For me, the soundtrack in this game gets the job done, but is nothing to write home about. The music fits the game well, but is not particularly memorable. Your mileage may vary, depending on whether or not you grew up with this game. In my case, I never played this until the late 90s when I got my MVS cartridge. The soundtrack is not without its moments, though. In Europe, unfortunately, some of the carts released had their packaging defaced in order to sell the carts in the region. Black permanent marker was used to cover up the woman's boobs and her exposed leg. You heard me right, somebody bothered to take a Sharpie to each and every copy. It's amazing what people used to get worried about. Unfortunately, most covers still feature her in all her original glory. Let your boobs fly free. One feature of the game that I hope I'm conveying with our unskilled game footage here is its difficulty. This game is hard as balls. Not only do you have to deal with the usual issues of having to keep track of both your character and your crosshair at the same time, but it's also just brutally unforgiving. It certainly helps to learn the stages, but even then, with the speed of shots and the enemies, the learning curve is high. If you have an MVS or a Unibios, you can access the difficulty settings in the soft diffs. I recommend level 1 for practicing, as the speed and amount of projectiles is much more reasonable. I was able to reach the ending even with the limited continues of the home mode like this. Oh yeah, about those limited continues, the Unibios doesn't have an unlimited credits cheat for the AES mode, so be prepared to play in MVS mode if you want to credit feed. Speaking of the difficulty, now we come to the part of the game that finally scares off most players, the end boss. This is where the game plays a bad joke on the player and decides to no longer allow any continues as soon as the final battle with Dr. Muckley's machine has begun. That means if you lose all your lives here, it's game over. It doesn't matter if you have continues left in the home mode or if you add more coins in the arcade. If you run out of lives, you're done, at which point you will be treated to the bad ending. There are no second chances here. If you want to try again, your best bet will be to load the beginning of the final stage from a memory card. Another trick I use is to die on purpose right before the final battle begins. The battle with the two women before it is easy enough to kill yourself and then stay alive with a full stock of lives for the last battle. However, even if you set the game to the easiest difficulty, I still find this battle to be too unforgiving. The laser fires in perfect rhythm, but when it does, you have to time your roll just perfectly or you're going to be killed. Most players just find this to be too much. Imagine the frustration of players who got this far in the arcade. However, the boss doesn't take that many hits, and if you do manage to survive it, you will be treated to the true ending. Now let's take a look at the Neo Geo CD version of the game and see how that turned out.
Summer.
Interesting. The narration voice seems to be full quality, but it's not a new recording. So it seems that SNK may have still had the original voice recordings from the game in 1994 when the Neo Geo CD version was released. Or they at least cleaned the voices up in a very convincing way for the CD.
Dr. R. Muckley, an ex-US Army scientist, has been kidnapped by possible Northside 2.
Other than that though, the music is just the cartridge music recorded onto CD audio tracks. Albeit cleaned up just a little with a nice little reverb for the CD. And here's the juggling monkey. This is the standard loading screen built into the Neo Geo CD. This would be the robot if we were playing on the CDZ.
Summer.
And the game itself is exactly the same. Like most early games that were released for the Neo Geo CD, nothing is lost in the conversion, and once you're up and running, there is no load time. The only drawback is that the Neo Geo CD version will run you about the same price as the home cartridge at this point in time, so there isn't really any savings. As one of the first games on the system, Nam-1975 gave us a taste of what was to come. It is still a very fun action game to pick up and play now, so if you're considering grabbing a copy for some arcade gaming for you and another player at a reasonable price, then I heartily recommend it. Even with the cheesy acting and out-of-place sci-fi storyline, the theme still gives off a certain cinematic war movie coolness that is hard to find in other games. Thanks for watching my very first Neo Geo review video. I plan to continue reviewing the releases of Neo Geo in order, so please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Basement Brothers so you can join me next time when I'll be reviewing NGH-002, Baseball Stars Professional.